Yes, it's awesome. We absolutely love it.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
And we're back. It's great to have with us once again Zvika Klein, the editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post and the paper's former Jewish world analyst. He's considered one of the world's top journalists specializing in Jewish diaspora affairs. He's formerly correspondent for Israel's Makar Rishon Ma'ariv newspapers. He was born in Chicago, made Aliyah to Israel as a child. He's received journalism awards, and he just was released from house arrest. Police probing alleged Qatari payments to WNEW aides, took his phone and targeted him for 12 hours, barred him from contact with his family. Zvika, good to have you back, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov to you. So what's happening? Clue us in as to why they put you under house arrest and what's going on with the Quatargate affair, which is what this is really stems from.
So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. And I'll just speak in short because it's an ongoing interrogation and I don't want to get too much involved, but basically my criticism is that I was interrogated and put in house arrest for going to Qatar and interviewing the prime minister. Part of those that mediated, now it's public knowledge, may have had some connection to the prime minister and prime minister of Israel, Netanyahu. So there's a clash between all the authorities in Israel now, whether it the courts, law enforcement, government, etc. The way I see it, I kind of got stuck in the crossfire, but obviously the fact that I am no longer in house arrest and it was shortened, and there was a very big public outcry for my arrest, including also holding two of my cell phones still 3 weeks later. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
But it must have been frightening because you couldn't be in contact with your family. Some of them were overseas. So what is it like? Describe it, because I know it's something which people hear house arrest, they think it just means that you can find your house. What does it really mean?
Well, it was house arrest, but I was also interrogated 2 days in a row for 10 to 12 hours each day. So
wow,
wasn't that much of house arrest.
And now you go 3 other journalists also in a similar situation to you, where they were interrogated by the authorities?
They were only interrogated for a few hours each, and that's it. But so it's not exactly the same situation.
Now, give us the broader picture, because Qatar certainly has a complicated relationship where, on one hand, they're mediating between Hamas and Israel. On the other hand, they also sponsor terrorism. And yet, for many years, it's been reported, and I'm sure you've reported it too, for many years, the Hamas authorities were getting $30 million in cash, and it was sent from Qatar to Israel, to Tel Aviv, to Ben Gurion University, and Israel helped arrange for the money to be transferred to Hamas. We're talking about over hundreds of millions of dollars. I never understood.
Not only helped arrange, also asked for it. So it's not just like doing a favor. It was actually a request from the Israeli government, as well as the American government.
So what is that all about? Because now this seems to be stemming from all of that, because now they're saying that you and others are trying to curry favor, make Qatar look good in the media. But the bigger question is how all this money was being channeled through Israel to Hamas, which has helped them in October 7th.
So I just want to make it clear, I was interrogated about what was a suspect of contact with a foreign agent. Now, any good journalist will be in touch with a foreign agent, right? It's very unclear who this foreign agent is. Is it a lobbyist for Qatar that lives in the US? Is it Qatar as a country, even though Qatar is not considered an enemy state of Israel, even though there are no diplomatic ties? So the whole situation is kind of unclear. But I will say, I have criticism towards many directions, and one of them is also definitely, if in fact people who are working with the prime minister have been promoting, the narrative of Qatar within Israel and within the Jewish world. That's a big problem. Whether it legally an issue, because there may be different loopholes, but even if it's not a legal issue, it's definitely a very problematic public situation.
No, it certainly is. And by the way, if I remember correctly, may have been 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago, there was a whole big brouhaha about American Jews that were invited to Qatar, including people even like Alan Dershowitz, and there was even a lobbyist, some religious Jewish lobbyists that were getting paid like $50,000 a month to represent them. So that's
Right.
I don't know if it's related, but to me it seems there is some sort of a connection between what happened then and what's going on now, where the Qatar government constantly is looking to improve its image, whether it's with the Jewish Americans or in Israel or elsewhere.
I don't know enough about that aspect. It seems that there may be some sort of a connection, and all these people are also on the political right. So there is something to be said about that.
Now, when you were under house arrest, you couldn't write. I think one of the things that you said is you couldn't write, you couldn't do your work. So did that help get you out from under house arrest?
Did what help?
That you made you said that you can't do your work, you can't write, you can't do your positions.
No, I only published on my social media platform and on the Jerusalem Post website and newspaper. I only did that after the house arrest was shortened from 5 days to 3 days, and I was basically out.
But the other journalists were not under house arrest; they were just interrogated by the police.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
And which agencies were involved in interrogation in the Israeli government? Was it police who were involved in the interrogations?
The police.
The police. Okay, and that's still ongoing. They're still investigating, so you can still technically be called back again to provide more information, technically speaking.
Well, they have my phone, so they really could just,
But they know who you were in contact with, so how does your phone help them out any?
I don't know.
Are you concerned at all? Does that mean you have to get legal representation?
I already have legal representation.
I'm sure.
Of course. Yeah.
Wow, it's all in a day in Israel. Now, how did the public react to your house arrest and to this whole Quatargate scandal?
So it took a while for people to really understand, and I have to say that the public support, and mainly the support from journalists from all across different political spectrums and backgrounds, was overwhelmingly positive. I would say like 99% of journalists and media outlets supported me. Channel 14 on the right had every hour they had like an advertisement saying, and until I'm out of house arrest, they're not going to stop, and democracy is under attack. And journalists on the left said it's an issue of democracy when a editor-in-chief of a newspaper is arrested, put under house arrest, when it's very unclear what the allegations are. And I think this is kind of just a chaos that the whole country's in, where everything's just being turned upside down, and lots of people are trying to survive, and will do anything they can in order to get what they see as their opponent down.
But it's nice to see that both on the right and the left, the journalists supported you, because listen, it affects you, but it could be another journalist tomorrow that has the same thing. And journalists have a certain protection. At least I know they do in the United States. I don't know what it is like in Israel. I assume it's the same, where they're able to cover their stories and without fear of being compromised by the government.
Right. So, I think the only criticism I received was from a very marginal organization that claims to represent journalists in Israel, that criticized me for saying in an interview on the radio that I unfortunately had to expose certain sources of mine, even though I didn't really mean sources. I meant kind of I would say, PR people, etc., that were in touch with me. And I said that because I would really, and I still believe so. I want the truth to get out, and if there's anything illegal happening with this issue, unrelated to myself, but if I witnessed anything, I want that information out there for them to use. So and then they criticize me for exposing sources, and journalists are not allowed to do so, instead of actually saying you actually interrogated a journalist for his work. So,
but here's the thing, though: if you want to protect your sources and they take your phone, they can see who your sources are on your phone. So it seems like unfair, because how can you protect your sources if they took your phone? They see whoever you were in contact with.
So this organization was criticized by journalists from all across the spectrum. That's what I'm saying. Other than that, and I think that organization pretty much lost the little bit legitimacy that they still kind of had after that.
Well, Channel 13 in Israel reported that your trip was arranged by Eli Fedelstein, a former Bibi Netanyahu spokesman, who, together with Jonathan Urich, is one of the two main suspects in the case.
That's untrue.
Okay, but that's what they reported, alleged. Obviously, there's a lot going on. And listen, you were pretty transparent. You wrote exactly what your interview was about. You were there. You're reporting. So that's why I can't understand what's wrong. You're doing your job. You're a reporter. You're an editor. That's what.
I think the truth will come out and prove otherwise. So
how long did you see this whole process taking?
I have no idea.
Wow. And what do your attorneys tell you? They have no idea either.
No, they're just very surprised that taking a phone without a warrant, leaking information from a phone without a warrant, lying about what I was interrogated about, not allowing me to return to my children. My wife was abroad. I have young children, so someone had to take them out of school and in kindergarten. So there's a lot of issues that are very unclear with this whole situation.
Now, since they took out a warrant, can't you get your phones back? Can't your lawyers say, if, number one, whatever information they probably retrieved from your phones, I don't know why they would still be holding on to it, but it was taken without a warrant, which is a violation of your rights.
Right. I don't want to get more into this, if possible.
I'm sure there's a lot more stuff going on. Okay, understood. I was just trying to understand what's going on here, because there's due process.
It's a very complicated situation, and definitely when you live in a different country, to try and follow what's going on in this crazy country is not easy.
Well, a lot of it seems very political. On the one hand, they're looking to get at Bibi, right? They're looking to get him from different angles. On the other hand, there's certain exposure. Like I said, to me, I just cannot understand and fathom how they can allow $30 million a month go through Israel to go on the way to Hamas. And then you find that Hamas is hundreds of millions of dollars that were used in October 7th. And then, by the way, the top leadership of Hamas are billionaires many times over.
I agree.
Living in Qatar, of all places, by the way. Unbelievable. We're speaking with Zvika Klein. He's the editor of Jerusalem Post, doing a great job. And he was just released from house arrest in the Quatargate affair. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned. If you'd like to participate in our conversation, 212-769-1925, 212-769-1925. Email is a wonderful way to get your questions answered. Zev@talklinenetwork.com, Zev@talklinenetwork.com. And we'll also look at the Jerusalem Post conference, an exciting conference taking place in New York. We'll talk about that when we get back as well.
Hi, this is Lee Yaffe, inviting you to join me for Heart to Heart, Stories and Support from the Long Short Road, a new radio program exploring mental health with valuable insights and practical tools for healing. Tune in Thursday nights at 9 p.m. on Zev Brenner's Talkline network, airing on WSNR 620 AM, WNEW 102.7 FM HD3, and streaming online at talklinenetwork.com.
Hello. Suffering from foot pain that's dragging you down? This is Dr. Uriel Levy, your trusted board-certified podiatrist with over 3 decades of experience. I'm here to bring relief to your feet. With expertise in orthopedic and medical foot issues, I craft custom orthotics for 75 to 100 patients each week, meaning countless happy feet. Medicaid managed care, including Fidelis, United Healthcare, and Anthem, covers custom-made orthotics if you need them. Plus, I combine reflexology and Eastern medicine to bring a holistic approach to foot and lower extremity care. Think of me as a soul healer, not just a podiatrist. Whether it's plantar fasciitis, bunions, or everyday aches, don't let foot pain hold you back. Please visit me at my Borough Park office at 1453 44th Street. That's 1453 44th Street, or in Spring Valley at 11 Charles Lane. Call 347-386-5237. That's 347-386-5237. Or visit drsoulhealer.com. That's Dr. DrSolehealer.com to schedule your appointment today. Your feet will thank you. Don't let foot pain defeat you.
Are you ready to meet the visionaries, diplomats, pioneering high-tech and business leaders shaping the future of Israel and America? The Jerusalem Post and Talkline Network invite you to the Jerusalem Post Conference on Monday, May 19th at the Pierre Hotel in Manhattan. Join some of the most influential voices in Israeli and U.S. affairs, thought leaders, change makers, and iconic personalities, all in one room. Hear from special guests like Steve Witkoff, U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, actor Liev Schreiber, Montana Tucker, Benny Gons, Ambassador Danny Deneau, Nir Barakat, Liz Savesky, Julia Hart, Siggy Flicker, and many more. Seize this opportunity. Book your tickets now at JerusalemPost.com and enjoy an exclusive 50% discount by using the code TLJP. That's JerusalemPost.com. Use the code TLJP for your 50% discount. But hurry, seats are limited and they're going fast. Be part of history. Be part of the conversation. Hobnob with the movers and shakers. So get your 50% discount tickets at the JerusalemPost.com using code TLJP. Don't miss it. Go to the JerusalemPost.com, code TLJP. I look forward to seeing you at the Jerusalem Post Conference on Monday, May 19th. Hi, this is Zev Brenner. People always ask me to recommend a plumbing and construction expert, as it's not easy to find reliable help. I've been using Bliss Plumbing and Construction, and I found them to be prompt, reliable, and they do excellent work. Plus, Jay Bliss and his team are just great to work with, reasonable too. So whether it's a leaky faucet or a bigger project, give Jay a call at 516-288-6779. That's 516-288-6779. And with Pesach coming and you need to get your house in order, don't let repair or construction issues add to the stress and leave you drained. Call Bliss Plumbing and Construction, 516-288-6779. Again, that's 516-288-6779.
Podcasts are everywhere, but cutting through the noise is tough. Did you know of the 5 million podcasts worldwide? Half of them only get 30 listeners? Want to reach a bigger audience? Think radio. Talkline Network gets you targeted listeners who are ready to engage with your message. Host your own show with us and supercharge your podcast's reach. We'll help you connect with the right audience. For a free consultation, call Talkline Network today at 212-769-1925, extension 100. That's 212-769-1925, or email zevbrenner@gmail.com. That's 212-769-1925, extension 100.
Hey, this is Alan Dershowitz. One of the most important Jewish institutions in the world today is Talkline with Zev Brenner. He is so smart and he is so innovative, and he has so many interesting guests. I don't know what Yiddishkeit, I don't know what New York, I don't know what the world would do without Zev. So Zev, Yasher Koach, may you go from strength to strength and keep informing us and educating us and keep fighting for Jewish values.
Did you know we're on Twitter too? Connect with us there and get involved.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981. Please call us with your questions and comments at 212-769-1925. That's 212-769-1925. Or email us at zevbrenner@gmail.com.
And we're back. Zvika Klein is our guest editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Post. He's really a specialist, one of the top journalists dealing with Jewish diaspora affairs, and he just was released from house arrest. And we're taking some of your phone calls. Let's go to Jacob in Flatbush. Your question for our guest, Zvika in Israel.
Hi. My question is, your newspaper, this is more a reflection of the newspaper, I guess, than you necessarily. But the newspaper, in its reporting, doesn't seem to acknowledge that the institutions of the state, whether we're talking about the judiciary or media or academia, have remained in the hands of those who, shall we say, were from the Labor Party, from Marach, and continue to be controlled by them, and have always been against Cherut, Likud, and that there's been this undercurrent of really war between them, and that in the newspaper's coverage of the Prime Minister, whether one likes every policy of his or not, there seems to be an absence of including that in coverage.
So your question to Zvika is?
So my question is, I'll try to be more concrete. Why is it, for example, that the Bagatz, for example, the Supreme Court or the Attorney General, that they seem to be exerting, they're not elected, and they seem to be exerting enormous and the media enormous power over the government, and yet the newspaper seems to blame everything on the Prime Minister and his government. When the government
let Zvika respond to you. Go ahead, Zvika.
Thank you for your question. I'll relate, I think, to what you said pretty much at the beginning, but I would say, first of all, thank you for reading, and thank you for having an opinion. I think, first of all, we, in our opinion section, we include all these voices, including the voice you've said, and including more to the right and more to the left than what you said. I would hope, and I would try for my journey, put the information out there and take an opinion on what's going on. Obviously, the coverage can be, a person's coverage can sometimes be affected by what they think or about the platform they write for or report for. We don't have we don't see ourselves as a right wing or a left wing newspaper. Therefore, we allow ourselves in our editorial stance to criticize when necessary, and to support when support is in our opinion due. So therefore, I understand your question. I think it really depends on 1,000 factors. And as I said before in the interview, yes, there is a war between all of authorities within Israel. Whether, who started, quote unquote, what children will always ask, I don't think it really matters at this point. And at the same time, there are many problematic behaviors within the Prime Minister's office. So I think, criticizing the judiciary when needed, as well as law enforcement, but also the government itself, is something that as journalists we should do, and we will continue doing.
Did that answer your question?
Not really.
I tried.
I'm still troubled. I don't. In other words, what I'm saying is, that in the news articles, there definitely seems to be a bias. I'm not saying from your writing, but from many articles, there definitely seems to be a bias against the Likud, against the right wing, and it's not reflected. I don't see articles that are saying that there's a judicial dictatorship in effect. And yeah, there can be all kinds of accusations against the prime minister, and so far he seemed to have weathered them, and these cases against him have seemed to disappear, and yet they continue. And you have judicial commissars who are determining the war aims. The reason that Hamas was able to go to defenses was because the Supreme Court had ruled that soldiers are not allowed to shoot. And like 4 years ago, when you have these massive Arab so-called peaceful demonstrators going to the frontier, the IDF couldn't do anything, and that was all part of Hamas's plan. But I'm just saying, where is the coverage there? It's not revealing the political.
What if I told you I agree with almost everything you said?
Okay, that's hopeful.
No, I'm saying, like, I think, yes, there are issues in the judiciary. Yes, there needs to be a reform, some sort of reform, and most of Israeli society reflected that throughout the years. It became very political, and obviously everything is political, but because of the current government and those in opposition, many of which supported a reform but didn't support it under a Likud, a government, but also the way it was done in a very sloppy and very negative and even violent way. On the one hand, on the other hand, and issues of violence in the Arab sector, etc. I agree with almost everything you say, and my opinion is not the only opinion in the paper, and I really believe that newspapers, are combined. Are the voice of a newspaper cannot just be from the editor. It has to be, included. Those that work in the news outlet itself will de facto kind of make what a certain element of their voice will be.
Anyway, thank you for good questions.
Can I just ask one little question?
Go ahead, 30 seconds. Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so Israel is a parliamentary system, and I hear on your newspaper they talk about separation of powers. That's based on a republican system. In Britain, which you think of as a parliamentary system for centuries, only recently created a Supreme Court because Parliament is always supreme. It's representing the voice of the people. Why is that? I've never seen that reflected in the newspaper. That's a basic point. There's a difference between a republican and the parliamentary system. It's not America. Israel's not America.
I agree, we're not America, and we can't compare between countries. And by the way, there are very different types of democracies. To that specific, example, I can't answer.
Anyway, thank you for your phone call. I appreciate that. The caller mentioned Zvika, that the prime minister's problems are over. Aren't they still ongoing investigations? His problems are still there, just as taking a long time because of the war.
It's a combination of so many things, but also, listen, some of the things are exaggerated. Some may be legit, right? I don't know all the details, and there's so many details. But the fact is, we can't ignore the fact that October 7th happened on his watch, right? Let's not ignore that. And we could, look at a leader and say, where he succeeded, where he hasn't succeeded. And October 7th is a failure. Everyone will agree on that. So,
no question, it is a failure. And I think after the war is going to be over, there's going to be a lot of reckoning and accounting that's going to have to be dealt with.
100%. I mean, it's already begun, but yeah.
I wanted to shift because I've gone to the Jerusalem Post conference in New York for quite a number of years. It's a really great event, and you can hobnob with some of the leading newsmakers, the politicians, the diplomats, the business people. I remember meeting the son of the Shah of Iran, for example. You get to really meet some incredible personalities, some that are speaking, some that are not. So tell us about the Jerusalem conference this year. Seems to have like a very eclectic, very interesting group of people that will be participating.
Right. So as I heard, on the ads, on your radio. So yeah, we really have like a mix of people, and I think that's kind of the idea. It's not like we're just discussing policy or just discussing anti-Semitism. It's also, it could also be business, economy, Judaism. There's so many other issues. So we have a bunch of speakers lined up, and others that are, hopefully we'll publish them soon. So, Steve Witkoff is supposed to be one of the main speakers, and I think that'll be super interesting because even though his title is, the Middle East envoy, but he's pretty much the envoy for
everything,
for everything important, complicated, or whatever. And many, many Israeli senior politicians. So Benny Gantz, two former defense ministers, and Benny Gantz, who was the recent also defense minister. He was not the recent defense minister, but we also have Yoav Gallant, who was the recent defense minister from the Likud, who is, in a very interesting political situation where he kind of, he was fired by his government, and we have a gala event in the evening before, after the parade, the supporting Israel parade. Our main speaker is going to be Dr. Phil. It's be interesting, actually, an interesting take. He's going to be speaking to volunteers from Zaka, who are suffering from PTSD, etc. And they're building some sort of resilience center. So we partnered with them on that. We have American politicians like Brian Nass, the mayor Eric Adams, NYPD representatives.
My friend Richie Taylor, I see, Inspector Richie Taylor.
Exactly. Yeah, but also people who are more in kind of like the entertainment side of things. Liev Schreiber is an actor, very active in the world, Jewish American actor, very active in the support for Ukraine. The former liaison to the Middle East for the Trump administration, Jason Greenblatt. A bunch of other people, social media influencers.
I saw Julia Hart, certainly a very, very interesting, controversial figure, but she just won her lawsuit against her former husband.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know if we'll get into that. We're not a tabloid. But I think it'll be interesting I think she and mainly her daughter Miriam have been so supportive of Israel since October 7th. And unfortunately, it's not like every single person in that space, that's has their own Netflix series is like standing up for Israel and spending so much time in Israel. So I think that's definitely something that will be interesting. One of the people we'll speak to is someone who became a friend of mine, Brian Kilmeade from Fox, a huge supporter of Israel.
He's excellent. He's very good.
He's and he knows so much. And I don't know if this is a secret or not. He's never been to Israel, so maybe I'll be able to convince him. And I'm coming also, with a team of our journalists, some of our journalists from Israel who will be with us. Amichai Stein, who's our new diplomatic correspondent, Michael Starr, who's our Jewish World correspondent, and others who will be, moderating, interviewing, and just also, as you said, like schmoozing throughout the whole day and a half of events.
I'll be honest with you. While I enjoy the speeches, you have a very interesting array of people from different walks of Jewish life and Israeli life. But one of the most interesting things is just hobnobbing, meeting some of the individuals, some of them that are speaking, some of them that are not speaking, that are really big machas in the Jewish world.
Right. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I mean, even though I'm working, so I have to, moderate, listen, etc. I enjoy that also. But when I go to a conference, I usually just enjoy, speaking to people, the access to these leaders, business leaders, politicians, actors, influencers, etc. As you said, it's like a very interesting and like different mix. And I think part of the reason is we're an Israeli news outlet, but we're mainly read in the U.S. And it's just a very interesting mix of things. And we're part of a larger media group that has Hebrew media. So like it's just like it's not. Sometimes it's difficult for people to understand, where we stand politically. Just like the previous guest you had asking questions, or what our agenda is on certain things. And sometimes we also just don't have an agenda. And try and be like old school journalists.
Any possible Elon Musk will show up? He was not going to be so much working with Doge now. He's going back to his business. So maybe he'll have some time to squeeze in to go to the Jerusalem Post. Just announced it a couple of days ago.
Yeah. Good idea. We'll see. We have other people from the administration that we're in talks with. I just don't want to publish anything before it's finalized.
Now, because of your house arrest, will you have any difficulty leaving Israel, coming to a conference in New York?
No, nothing.
Oh, so you're
All
able
good.
to travel. There's no problems with that. Okay.
Yeah, no restrictions whatsoever.
Well,
that's why it's a bit of an exaggeration, because there's like no restrictions, no allegations at the moment. So we'll see.
You have to buy a new cell phone.
I bought a new cell phone. You are the first interview I'm doing with it. So
fine. By the way, before I let you go, just to get a handle what's happening in Israel now. What's the mood politically? Because the war is intensifying in Gaza, and yet you have more protests and people wanting to see the hostages released, make a deal at any cost. So just give us an idea about the mood, what's happening out there in Israel between these competing factions to prosecute the war. At the same time, those are saying, let's just make a ceasefire, let's just bring them home.
Obviously everyone wants them home. It's not even a question. I think, and demonstration, we're speaking about democracy. Demonstration is a very important and integral part of democracy. That said, a lot of the, on both sides of the political spectrum, a lot of the protests have become very violent and very inciting. There was just a picture last night I saw from a demonstration in Tel Aviv that was supposed to be, for the release of hostages, but it actually was, some sort of art exhibit on a street of like heads chopped off of Benjamin Netanyahu. And and each head had a different like reason why it should be chopped off was the subtext. And then on the right also there's very extreme campaigns against and including from the government against heads of all the institutions, whether it's the Shin Bet, etc. So it's very the atmosphere is very tight and very fragile.
No, I hear that, and there's no, we've seen no movement as far as hostages release are concerned, and there's no movement as far as crushing Hamas. It just seems to be just going on and on and on.
There are different reports, but I figure every day there are different reports about what is in the talk. Now I saw one report saying half a year ceasefire and getting all the hostages, discussing the future. A different one was saying 5 years of a ceasefire and letting all the hostages go. So it's very unclear. And I hope I keep on hoping there's things that I don't know and that will surprise us in a positive way. And I hope to be surprised.
No, well, we should be surprised. Now, let me ask you this. The Pope Francis was buried today. What is the reaction? I know they took a while before they had a release where the prime minister let something out. And there was they mentioned of blessed memory, and then they took it away. It's a complicated situation because the Pope had some Jewish connections, but when it came to Israel, his record was not good at all, especially after
100%.
October 7th.
Right. So I think if this was before October 7th, things would probably be different. After October 7th, we've seen a very negative, rhetoric from the late Pope towards Israel, including, exhibits, that were very, very extreme and very anti-Israel. Showing I don't know, Jesus and his followers as Palestinians.
And was wearing a keffiyeh. The baby was wearing a keffiyeh. By the way, I said it earlier tonight. In 2016, he recognized a Palestinian state in Judea and Samaria, and he's the first pope that really recognized a Palestinian state. And he was in touch with Gaza, with the parishioners, almost on a daily basis. He looked at Israel genocide, pursuing genocide. And yet in Sudan and elsewhere around the world where Christians are being persecuted, he hasn't had that same kind of reaction, different kind of reaction to what's happening in Gaza and in Israel. When he went to the wall a number of years ago, also to the separation wall, that was also very controversial. So it seemed that there was this complicated and complex relationship.
Right. And therefore, I think people were very hesitant. I think a lot of leaders just didn't think it through, or just, hoped people wouldn't realize that they didn't react or didn't respond. The foreign ministry put out a tweet and they deleted it, whatever. So it's, President Herzog actually did put something out, and the representative of Israel was the ambassador to the Holy See. It wasn't an elected official or someone,
Did he actually go to the funeral? He went to the funeral?
He was supposed to. I may have missed that on Shabbat. But
going on Shabbat, would that create some sort of crisis in the government, having an official Israeli representative?
Listen, I know the Conference of European Rabbis sent one of the representatives, Rabbi Giseni, who is the chief rabbi of Italy, in Rome, and he just walked there, just like Rabbi Mervis walked to the inauguration or whatever it's called in the UK.
Coronation in the UK, okay.
Of Charles, right? So I mean, that's definitely there is precedent to this type of situation, and I think definitely in Europe they couldn't ignore it. Israel as a state is a bit different, and I think the criticism towards the Pope is so big that the government didn't see a need, whether that a right decision or not, I'm not sure, but because the Christian world, a lot of segments of the Christian world are very disappointed in Israel and very critical of Israel.
Unfortunately, before I let you go, there's some movement with Iran, with the administrator. Steve Witkoff is going to be at Jerusalem Post conference, supposedly is making overtures where maybe Iran could have a civilian nuclear program. This goes back against what the President Trump had said originally, can't have any nuclear program. Is there concern in Israel about seemed to be a change and maybe going back along the Obama type arrangement with Iran?
There's a very big concern in Israel. I would say from all, from defense, defense experts from all backgrounds are very concerned at this type of a deal. Again, there is no practical deal, but a diplomatic deal that allows Hamas to continue, Iran to continue either enriching uranium or it doesn't involve some sort of an attack or actually dismantling their nuclear weapons is something that Israel is very concerned and very is following very cautiously, but also behind the scenes people like Ron Dermer, etc., are definitely speaking out loud and with the president's people and trying to fight against it.
Zev Klein, editor-in-chief of Jerusalem Post, thanks for being with us. I look forward to personally seeing you at the Jerusalem Post conference in New York. Going to be a great event. Tell everybody come. You want to meet the people who make
everybody come.
Come half price. We if you just do it through Talkline. So look forward.
Tell them that Zev sent you.
Okay, and we'll meet some of them at the Jerusalem Post conference itself. Going to be a great event. Thanks for being here with us, and I'm glad that the worst part of what happened is behind you with regarding Qatar. So. Thank God for that.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
They're at Zvika Klein here on the Talkline Network. We're going to take a short break. We're back with some closing remarks right